I have watched men study the right books, attend the right lectures, repeat the right phrases, and fail. I have seen them learn what to do and still neglect to do it. The world is full of bright intentions that never become bridges, of fine plans that never become enterprises. This has troubled me more than ignorance itself, for ignorance can be cured by knowledge, but there is a deeper ailment that knowledge alone cannot touch. Why do men fail even after they know what to do? I ask that question in rail cars and meeting halls, in factories and offices, where the air still carried the smell of effort. I asked it of clerks who dreamed of commerce and of craftsmen who spoke of invention. I asked it of myself in the quiet hours before dawn. The answer stood before me at last, simple and stern like a law of nature. Knowledge is the map. Discipline is the journey. Many men possess a map, folded neatly in their pocket, growing soft with age and unused. They take it out when company arrives. They trace the routes with a finger, and they speak handsomely of destinations. But when the company departs and the lamps grow dim, the map returns to the pocket and the road remains untrodden. The missing key is not more information. The missing key is the quiet strength that turns information into motion. The missing key is discipline. Understand me well. Discipline is not a mood nor a visitation of fortune. It is not the heat of enthusiasm that burns hot at sunrise and dies by noon. It is the steady engine that pulls the freight through the night while others sleep. It is the unseen governor of conduct, the orderly arrangement of hours, the faithful return to one's task when the heart is loud with complaint. It is the hand upon the helm when the sea is uncooperative. You cannot wait for discipline. You must command it. A man who waits to feel ready will be ruled by the seasons of his emotion, and the seasons change without asking his permission. A man who commands discipline appoints himself master over those seasons. He speaks to his own mind with authority and says, "You will rise, you will work, you will finish," and the mind, though it murmurs at first like a reluctant mule, will obey the voice that is used to being obeyed. I have learned that the moment one becomes willing to command himself, the whole machinery of life begins to obey. Opportunities that once drifted past unseized seem to slow and dock at his wharf. People begin to trust his promises because they witness that he first keeps them with himself. Fortune, which flees the noisy braggart, draws near to the man whose days are arranged with quiet exactness. The world, it seems, respects a schedule. Let us speak plainly. Some men are in love with the idea of greatness, but refuse the common work by which greatness is purchased. They search for a secret door and overlook the visible staircase. Discipline is that staircase, one step and then the next, each taken whether the air is warm or biting, whether the room is full of praise or entirely empty. Do not confuse discipline with cruelty toward oneself. Discipline is not a whip, it is a harness. It does not bruise, it bears. The farmer yokes his ox not to torment the beast, but to guide its power, so the field may be opened and the harvest increased. So too does a man yoke his impulses to his purpose, not to rob life of joy, but to protect joy from erosion by waste and drift. In my travels, I have watched the disciplined man move about his day like a banker counts coin, carefully, calmly, with an eye toward increase. He lays out his morning before the sun lays out its light. He gives each hour an assignment. He does not require applause to begin, nor sympathy to continue. He is courteous with others and strict with himself. And little by little, the invisible compounding of such days builds a fortress of results around him. This is why the undisciplined call him fortunate. They see the fortress, they do not see the daily bricks. If you would change your life, do not add noise, add order. Appoint a chief aim, and let your actions salute it. Determine the hours of your study, the hours of your craft, the hours of your rest, and honor them as you would a solemn contract. When you fail, return at once. Delay is the anesthetic of failure. The road forgives the man who keeps walking. Now listen to me with the same seriousness with which I speak. Let these lines be fixed upon your mind in the rhythm of a drum. Repeat them until they are no longer borrowed lines, but your own. Discipline is not punishment. It is power in motion. Discipline is not a feeling. It is a command. Discipline is not noise. It is order that grows, results in silence. Discipline is not a cage. It is the key that opens every useful door. Discipline is the bridge from knowledge to possession. Say them quietly now, and say them again tonight before you sleep. And tomorrow at the first light when the world is still undecided, you will discover that words, when married to decision, become instruments. Ask yourself once more, why do men fail even after they know what to do? Because they wait for the will to act to arise from pleasant weather. But the disciplined man does not petition the weather. He sets his sail according to his purpose, and he moves. Therefore I declare to you, as plainly as a man can speak, you cannot wait for discipline. You must command it. Command it this hour. Command it with the next small action. Command it by keeping one promise to yourself before the day is finished. The first obedience is the hardest, the second is easier, and the third begins to feel like the natural state of a free man. Let us begin as builders begin, with the foundation laid square and true. Fix your mind to your aim. Arrange your hours. Present yourself to your work as a soldier presents himself to duty, and while others continue to sharpen their pencils, you will have written the first page. Discipline is the quiet strength that turns knowledge into reality. Hold to it, and the scattered pieces of your life will begin, almost imperceptibly at first, to take their appointed places. Hold to it, and what you once chased will approach you of its own accord. Hold to it, and you will find that success which avoids the ungoverned is eager to dwell with the man who governs himself. There is a great misunderstanding that has followed the word discipline like a shadow since the dawn of ambition. Men hear it and shrink, as if the sound itself were a threat to pleasure or an enemy to joy. They speak of it in low tones, as though it were the stern face of a schoolmaster come to confiscate their laughter. They think discipline means denial, or that to live under its law is to walk through life without color or warmth. I tell you plainly, this is false. Discipline, when rightly understood, is not a chain. It is a compass. It does not rob a man of freedom. It returns freedom to him. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two men. I knew both. The first was a man of marvelous imagination. His mind was a workshop filled with golden ideas. He spoke beautifully of the things he would one day do, the books he would write, the business he would build, the inventions that would change the world. He was the sort of man who drew attention wherever he went, for he was charming, quick-witted, and full of promise. The second man was quiet, almost invisible in a crowd. He spoke little and dreamed even less aloud. His goals were modest, his means unremarkable, but he possessed one thing the first man lacked: discipline. I watched these two men for many years. The first lived as if inspiration were enough to build an empire. Each week he began a new project, and each week it died in the same grave of postponement. He would plan late into the night, and in the morning his energy had vanished. He loved the beginning of things, but not their continuation. And so he grew older, surrounded by unfinished plans and unkept promises, a brilliant mind wrapped in the cobwebs of his own neglect. The second man, the quiet one, began small. His work was not grand, nor did he expect immediate recognition. He rose at the same hour each morning, worked with precision, and retired at the same time each evening. When obstacles came, he met them without drama or delay. He did not speak of tomorrow, because his hands were already full with today. Years passed, and I saw what I have since seen 1,000 times over. The man of imagination stood still talking of what might be. The man of discipline had built something solid, something that others could depend upon. The world, indifferent to dreams that are not backed by action, quietly shifted its rewards to the second man. Opportunities came to him not because he sought them, but because order attracts trust, and trust attracts opportunity. By the end of his life, he had become a man of substance, not through luck, nor through brilliance, but through daily effort. And so I wrote in my notebook, as a reminder to myself, the man of daily effort shall inherit the world. Discipline, my friend, is not the enemy of joy. It is the architect of it. There is no lasting happiness without structure, no enduring freedom without self-command. The undisciplined man spends his days in pursuit of comfort, yet lives in the discomfort of chaos. His time slips through his fingers like sand because he has not learned to give it shape. But the disciplined man, he may appear rigid from afar, yet within him is the calm of a river that knows its direction. His days are not a scramble of impulses, but a procession of deliberate choices. He is free, not because he can do anything at any time, but because he can do what matters at the right time. There is a kind of slavery and indulgence that few men ever recognize. The man who cannot rise when he should, the man who cannot say no to distraction, the man who breaks his own word. These are not free men. They are prisoners of their appetites, captives of their moods, and the bars that hold them are invisible, forged by their own habits. True discipline is liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of the unnecessary. It releases you from the noise of indecision. It gives you mastery over the only kingdom that truly belongs to you yourself. When I speak of discipline, I do not mean the grim austerity of a man who has forgotten how to smile. I mean the deliberate joy of a man who has learned that life's pleasures are deepest when they are earned. A good meal tastes finer when the day has been well spent. Rest feels sweeter when it follows labor honestly given. Achievement, whether humble or great, glows brightest against the background of effort. You see, there is a false freedom that ruins many lives, the freedom of doing as one pleases without consequence. It feels delightful for a moment, intoxicating even, but it leads, as all poisons do, to dullness and decay. Then there is the true freedom that only discipline grants, the freedom to create, to persist, to build something enduring out of the raw material of time. Discipline, then, is not the opposite of happiness. It is the condition that makes happiness possible. Think of the artist. Without discipline, his inspiration evaporates into sketches that never become paintings. Think of the writer. Without discipline, his ideas die as fragments in notebooks. Think of the worker. Without discipline, his skills grow rusty and his opportunities fade. Think of the father. Without discipline, his household falls into confusion and his children learn by his example that weakness is acceptable everywhere in life. Discipline is the silent structure holding joy upright. You will meet people who say, "I cannot live so rigidly." But it is not rigidity they fear, it is accountability. For once a man knows the law of discipline, he must face the truth that his failures are no longer the fault of luck or circumstance, but of his own neglect. It is easier for the ego to live in chaos than to live under the weight of responsibility. But when a man accepts this law, when he willingly places himself beneath it, he ceases to be a slave to circumstance. He becomes the cause instead of the effect. He moves from drift to direction, from reaction to creation. Remember this always: discipline does not take away your life. It gives you back your power. I have known men of great intellect who remained poor because they could not discipline their thoughts into plans. And I have known men of simple means who rose to wealth and influence because their disciplined habits multiplied their modest talents. The difference between the two is not chance. It is the law of order applied daily, faithfully, without waiting for the mood to improve. There is no secret greater than this. The world bends toward the man who keeps his word to himself. When I look back upon those two men, the dreamer and the doer, I see clearly that the one who conquered his day conquered his destiny. The other, who sought freedom in neglect, found only restlessness and regret. So I say again, not as a poet, but as a witness to life's quiet arithmetic: the man of daily effort shall inherit the world, for he has built, through habit and through faithfulness, a fortress that time itself cannot breach. He has learned that to master oneself is the beginning of mastering all things. Before a man can command his time, he must first command his thoughts. This truth, simple as it may sound, is the foundation upon which all discipline rests. For time is but a reflection of the mind that governs it. A man whose thoughts wander without direction will find his hours vanishing like mist in the morning sun. But the man who has learned to master the theater of his own mind, who has trained his thoughts to move in the order of his will, he becomes master not only of his day, but of his destiny. There are two selves within every man. I have seen them at war in every face, from the factory floor to the boardroom. One I call the emotional self, restless, eager, full of impulses that burn bright and die quickly. This self loves comfort, fears struggle, and seeks approval. It is a faithful servant, but a disastrous master. The other I call the master self, quiet, patient, and resolute. It is not moved by whims, nor frightened by silence. It knows what must be done and does it, regardless of how it feels. The master self commands. The emotional self obeys. Now, within each of us, one of these selves is seated upon the throne, and whichever self you feed daily will rule your life. When I was a young man, I believed discipline meant forcing my body to work harder. I thought the battle was fought in the muscles, in the long hours, in the visible toil. But I was mistaken. The true battleground is invisible. The real contest begins in thought. A man may rise early, dress neatly, and begin his labor, but if his thoughts remain undisciplined, if his inner voice still wavers between desire and doubt, he is divided against himself, and no divided mind can build anything that stands. Before you can master your hands, you must master your mind. Think of a horse without a rider. It is powerful, full of energy, but its strength is wasted in erratic movement. Now imagine that same horse guided by a steady hand. The same energy becomes useful, the same strength moves with purpose. So it is with a man's mind. The thoughts must be trained, guided, and brought to heel beneath the reins of purpose. Every day, from the moment a man opens his eyes, the battle begins anew. His emotional self whispers, "Sleep a little longer, begin later. The world can wait," but the master self answers, "Rise." The world will not wait, and neither will I. That is the first victory of the day. And that small victory repeated enough times becomes character. You may not hear the sound of that battle, but it is fought in every man's head, in the quiet before the morning, in the hesitation before the first task, in the temptation to yield to fatigue or distraction. The weak man loses those battles silently, and each defeat weakens his will a little more. The strong man, the disciplined man, learns to win them before they even begin. There is a method I have taught to those who seek mastery over themselves, a simple but powerful act of the will. Each morning before the world speaks, speak to yourself. Do not rush from bed into the noise of the day. Sit still, breathe deeply. Let the room be quiet, for the mind listens best when the world is silent. Then in that stillness, address yourself as you would a trusted subordinate. Say clearly, firmly, with conviction, "Today I command my thoughts. Today I act according to purpose, not to mood. Today I serve my higher self." You may think such words are trivial, but I assure you they are not, for what you speak with faith in the morning becomes the law of your mind for the day. The man who begins with order within will end with order without. When I began to practice this, I noticed something remarkable. The world, which had seemed hostile and unpredictable, began to reflect my inner state. My work became clearer, my decisions more precise. It was as if the external chaos had been waiting for the calm command of my inner voice. And I realized a law of life that few men ever discover. The outer world will always arrange itself according to the discipline of your inner one. There are men who labor endlessly to control their circumstances, but leave their thoughts wild and untended. They strive to order their environment while their mind remains disordered. And so, despite all their efforts, the same troubles return to them, wearing new faces. They do not understand that to change the world outside, one must first conquer the one within. The emotional self is cunning. It will not announce itself as your enemy. It will speak softly, in the language of comfort and reason. It will say, "You deserve a rest," or "This can wait until tomorrow." It will appeal to your feelings, for feelings are its weapons. But the master self answers with purpose, not emotion. It says, "I will rest when the work is done. I will wait only when waiting serves my plan." You see, the disciplined man is not heartless. He simply does not negotiate with weakness. He treats his emotions as he would a child, kindly but firmly. He does not let them steer the carriage. Every great achievement, every lasting work begins the same way, with one mind commanding another. Edison's mind commanded his fatigue. Lincoln's mind commanded his despair. Carnegie's mind commanded his ambition until it became service. In each case, the victory was not over men or markets, but over the self. I often say the mind is both your servant and your saboteur. If you do not teach it discipline, it will rebel in subtle ways. It will wander when you need focus. It will seek comfort when you require effort. It will sabotage your best intentions with the smallest of delays. But once trained, once taught that your word is law, it becomes the greatest ally you will ever know. A trained mind is like a loyal soldier. It follows commands without argument. And when you have that kind of obedience within, there is no obstacle without that can defeat you. So practice this inner mastery each day. Begin small. Before you reach for your coat, reach for your mind. Before you command your time, command your thoughts. Instruct them as you would a crew aboard a great ship. You will not drift. You will not waver. You will move toward the aim I have chosen. If you do this faithfully, your mind will learn the rhythm of obedience, and your life will begin to move with purpose. And when that day comes, when you rise and find your thoughts already marching in formation, you will know that the battle has been won, not once, but permanently. From that victory, all others flow. For no man can rule his world until he first rules himself. There is a law in this world that no man can escape, a law as certain as gravity and as just as time itself. Repetition is the pathway to mastery. Every man who has ever achieved greatness has walked beneath its weight, whether he knew its name or not. It is the law that turns effort into instinct, struggle into strength, and discipline into nature. In my years of study, I have come to understand that repetition is not merely the act of doing the same thing again and again. It is the process by which a man writes his will upon his own mind. You do not repeat a task only to complete it. You repeat it to become it. Consider this carefully. Every repetition is a vote cast in favor of your future self. Each time you rise early, each time you keep your word, each time you act when no one watches, you are training not only your habits, but your very identity. Repetition builds faith. Faith builds strength, and strength builds freedom. Let me share a story that was told to me many years ago by an old stonemason, a quiet man with hands thickened by honest work. He was tasked with breaking a large slab of granite that had resisted every tool he owned. Day after day, he struck it with his hammer, once, twice, 10 times, 50 times, 99 times. Still, the stone did not yield. On the 100th blow, it split clean in two. A crowd gathered, astonished at the sight, and one man exclaimed, "Look at that!" The stone broke with a single strike. The mason smiled faintly and said, "No, my friend, it broke with 100. That, my friend, is the law of repetition. The 100th blow only revealed what the 99 before it had already built in silence. The same law governs your mind. You may repeat an act of discipline again and again, seeing no visible change. You may wake each morning to the same routine, speak the same affirmations, write the same plans, and believe nothing is happening, but do not be deceived. Invisible progress always precedes visible progress. The mind, like stone, resists shaping at first. But with each strike of repetition, it yields a little more. And one day, with a single, seemingly ordinary act, the wall within you will break, and what you once struggled to do, you will do naturally. This is why I tell my students, you are not building a habit. You are building a law within your own mind. A habit can be broken. A law cannot. When a man repeats a discipline long enough, it ceases to require effort. It becomes the natural rhythm of his being, the invisible code that guides him without debate. When you wake at dawn day after day, there comes a morning when your body no longer resists. It moves before thought intervenes. When you speak words of strength to yourself each morning, there comes a time when your mind no longer argues. It obeys. When you act with faith even in silence, there comes a season when faith becomes the very air you breathe. That is the power of repetition. It is the hidden hammer shaping the unseen stone. I have observed that most men quit too soon. They swing their hammer 99 times and walk away, believing the stone unbreakable. They cannot see that their efforts have been storing energy within the invisible structure of their character. They abandon the task one day before the miracle. The disciplined man, however, understands that the 100th strike is inevitable. If he keeps striking, he no longer asks, "When will it break?" Instead, he says, "I will strike until it does." And that, my friend, is faith in its purest form, not blind belief in luck, but absolute confidence in the law of cause and effect. Every repetition strengthens the muscle of faith. The first time you act with discipline, you borrow belief from hope. The second time, you borrow from memory. The 100th time, you borrow from certainty. By then, the belief is no longer borrowed. It belongs to you. I once wrote that whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But belief itself is not born of sudden inspiration. It is born of repetition. The mind must be convinced through experience, not merely words. You may read 100 truths in a single night and remember none, but repeat one truth daily with feeling, and it will engrave itself upon your subconscious like a signature in stone. The subconscious mind does not respond to scattered effort. It responds to rhythm, to persistence, to the steady drumbeat of repetition. This is why repetition is not tedious. It is sacred. It is the daily ceremony by which a man instructs his mind in obedience to his will. Think of the blacksmith in his forge. Each blow of the hammer may seem repetitive, but he knows that within the noise and the sparks, a shape is emerging. The fire is hot, the hammer is heavy, but he continues, knowing that repetition will soon turn raw metal into form and form into function. So it is with the mind. Every repetition of discipline is a strike upon the soul's anvil. Every act of persistence tempers the steel of character. Do not let the silence of progress deceive you. The invisible is always at work before the visible. The roots of the oak grow deep before the branches ever reach the sun. The embryo of greatness develops in the dark long before the world applauds the result. When you practice discipline daily, you are cultivating invisible roots of power beneath the surface of your life. Others may see nothing growing, but beneath the soil, the foundation of a giant is forming. Repetition is the price every man must pay for mastery. There is no shortcut, no easier road, no alternative route. The artist must draw every day. The craftsman must cut and polish until his hands know the motion by memory. The leader must make decisions again and again until courage becomes a reflex. The undisciplined man seeks novelty. The disciplined man seeks refinement. The first wants to feel different. The second wants to be different. Understand this well. Repetition is not the death of originality. It is the birth of mastery, for only through repetition does a man refine his work until it bears the mark of excellence. And so if you wish to be great, do not ask, how may I be inspired? Ask instead, what must I repeat today? Repeat effort, repeat faith, repeat courage, repeat discipline until these repetitions become your natural state. Remember this, you are not building a habit. You are building a law within your own mind. A habit bends under pressure. A law governs under pressure. And when you have built that law through daily repetition, when your mind obeys your command as faithfully as a muscle obeys its master, you will have unlocked the true secret of power, for repetition is the hammer, discipline is the hand, and mastery is the stone that finally breaks. There is an invisible force that every man must face the moment he begins to build something worthy of his destiny. It does not roar. It does not strike. It does not arrive with fire or fury. No, it comes quietly, softly, like an old friend placing a hand upon your shoulder, whispering with the gentlest voice, rest today, begin tomorrow. That, my friend, is resistance, the silent enemy of progress. I have come to know it well, for it dwells in every human heart. It does not hate you. It simply seeks to keep you safe, safe from effort, from risk, from the unknown. And yet in protecting you, it robs you of your power, for no man can rise while clinging to safety. Resistance is clever. It wears many faces. Sometimes it appears as fatigue, sometimes as logic, sometimes as the sweet promise of comfort. It will tell you that your plan needs a little more preparation, that the timing is not quite right, that you must first wait for inspiration to return. It speaks with the voice of reason, but its aim is paralysis. It does not attack your strength. It attacks your certainty. It does not stop you with force. It stops you with delay. I have seen men of extraordinary talent fall victim to this invisible enemy. They speak of their great ambitions with conviction, but when the moment comes to act, to take that first step, To lift that pen, to strike that hammer, something unseen binds them to their chair. Hours pass, days pass, and before long the idea that once burned in their mind grows cold. Resistance has claimed another victory. Quiet, invisible, absolute. Now understand me well. Resistance is not to be reasoned with. You cannot negotiate with it, and you cannot outthink it. The longer you debate with resistance, the stronger it becomes. The only antidote, the only weapon that has ever defeated it, is immediate action. You must act at once, even imperfectly, even clumsily. For action, no matter how small, is the blade that cuts through the fog. I once wrote that the man who hesitates is lost. I would now add, the man who hesitates is already held hostage by resistance. There is a principle I live by, one that has carried me through countless storms. He who acts, even for 5 minutes, defeats 1,000 doubts. Try it yourself. The next time you feel the weight of delay pressing upon you, the next time your mind begins its familiar whisper, not now, not yet, perhaps tomorrow, stop listening and move. Write one line, lift one weight, make one call, do one thing. You will feel it immediately. The fog lifts, the air clears, the energy returns. Why? Because motion awakens life. Stagnation feeds resistance. This is the great secret of momentum. The first act is always the hardest, for it demands that you defy gravity itself. But once you move, the same force that opposed you begins to assist you. The universe, it seems, respects the man who moves without waiting. I have observed that the men who succeed most are not the ones who always feel ready. They are the ones who act regardless of feeling. They understand that waiting for motivation is like waiting for the tide in a desert. It will never come. Motivation does not precede action. It follows it. The disciplined man rises, begins, and through the act of beginning creates his own inspiration. Let me describe how resistance works, so that you may recognize it in yourself. It does not attack at the beginning of your dreams. Know then you are too inspired, too alive. It waits, it watches. It waits for the first sign of fatigue, the first whisper of doubt. Then it enters quietly through the cracks of thought. Why rush, it says. You deserve a break. You've done enough for today. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow, that sacred word by which countless destinies have been delayed and many destroyed. But the man of discipline knows that tomorrow is a lie. The only real time is now. All power exists in the present moment, and to postpone action is to surrender it. When I was young, I once delayed an opportunity to interview a man of immense wealth and wisdom. I told myself I was not yet prepared, that I would approach him when I had studied a little more. Days turned to weeks. When I finally gathered my courage, I learned he had left the country, and with him went a door that would never open again. From that day forth, I made a vow. I would never again bow to resistance. When the inner voice said, "Wait," I would answer, "I move." And so I began to act. Even when unsure, even when afraid, I discovered that the act itself summoned the very clarity I thought I lacked. Action, I learned, is the parent of understanding. A man may think for hours and grow more confused. But let him act for 5 minutes, and the path ahead begins to take shape. The mind, when stagnant, breeds fear, but when in motion, it generates faith. Understand this. Resistance is not your enemy because it appears. It is your enemy because you obey it. When you stop obeying it, it loses its power entirely. There is a discipline I often practice and teach, the 5-minute rule. When resistance whispers, "Don't begin," I answer, "I will begin for 5 minutes." 5 minutes of labor, of focus, of movement, and always, without fail, those 5 minutes expand into an hour, a morning, a victory. For the hardest step is not the 1,000th, but the first. Do not make resistance an enemy to fear. Make it a signal to act. When you feel its presence, that invisible pressure in the chest, that quiet voice of delay, recognize it as proof that you are standing at the border of growth. It appears only when you are about to advance. Therefore, greet it as a challenge. Smile when it comes and say, "Ah, so here you are again. I must be close to something great." Then act immediately, decisively, without waiting for further permission. For every moment you delay, resistance gathers strength. But every moment you move, it dissolves like smoke in sunlight. Remember this well, and repeat it until it becomes instinct. He who acts, even for 5 minutes, defeats 1,000 doubts. Do not try to eliminate resistance. Conquer it daily through movement. Do not wait for inspiration. Summon it through motion. Do not beg for courage. Create it through action. For a man who acts cannot be defeated by the whispers of hesitation. He becomes like a river, unstoppable, unresisting, forever advancing toward his purpose. And when that happens, resistance ceases to be your jailer. It becomes your servant, a signpost that tells you exactly where to go next. Discipline, my friend, is not a matter of emotion. It is not born of inspiration, nor does it rely upon the unpredictable moods of the heart. Discipline is a system, a structure of thought and action that remains steady while emotion rises and falls like the tides. A man who depends upon his feelings will live a life of inconsistency. For emotion is a fair weather companion. It is present when the sky is clear, but vanishes when the storm arrives. The man of discipline builds his life not upon emotion, but upon rhythm, the dependable order of deliberate habits. You see, emotion is fire, brilliant, powerful, but unstable. A system is the forge that contains that fire and turns it into power. Without structure, even the brightest flame burns out. In my years observing men of success, I have found that each of them, without exception, had constructed a system of discipline, an architecture of their day, a sacred order in which their energy moved. They lived by a rhythm so consistent that one could nearly tell the time by watching their behavior. Andrew Carnegie rose at the same hour each morning, his first hour always dedicated to planning the day ahead. Henry Ford began his mornings not with words, but with movement, a walk through his factory, eyes and mind alert to every detail. Thomas Edison often worked through the night, but even in that irregularity there was rhythm. He had built his own cycle of rest and creation, unshaken by fatigue or opinion. What these men shared was not genius alone, but order. Each had built a life that moved by design, not by impulse. You may say, but Mr. Hill, I do not possess their wealth nor their resources. And I would answer, neither did they, not at the beginning. What they possessed was control over their hours, and that control became the seed of all else. When you control your hours, you control your destiny. For time properly directed becomes wealth, but time wasted or scattered becomes debt. And the man who spends his hours carelessly is like one who pours gold into the sand and wonders why he remains poor. I have always believed that a man's outer success is nothing more than the reflection of his inner order. Chaos within will always produce chaos without. But when the inner world is organized, when thought, emotion, and action move in harmony, the outer world aligns as well. Thus, I teach every man who seeks mastery to begin with a simple sacred act. Build a system. Choose your hour of rising and make it unchangeable. Choose the first act of your morning, and let it be the same each day. Choose your hours of labor, your periods of rest, your moments of reflection, and let no emotion disrupt them. You may think this mechanical, but it is not. It is liberating. For once a system governs your life, you are freed from the tyranny of mood. When I first began to write my lessons on success, I struggled with inconsistency. Some days I worked with passion. Others I postponed until the evening and found that nothing of worth was done. It was not intelligence I lacked, it was structure. Then one day I set a system. I would write at dawn every day without fail. The time was sacred. The act was non-negotiable, and soon I discovered something astonishing. Inspiration began to arrive on schedule. The mind, once trained, begins to anticipate order. It learns that certain hours are sacred and responds with precision. From that day onward, my work ceased to depend upon emotion. It became a rhythm, calm, constant, and productive. I have since advised many men to do the same. Do not wait for inspiration, I tell them. Inspire your own mind through ritual. Ritual is the scaffolding upon which greatness is built. The soldier who trains daily does not rely upon courage when battle comes. He relies upon conditioning. The artist who practices each morning does not rely upon passion. He relies upon repetition. When a man repeats order long enough, order becomes instinct. I recall once asking a wealthy industrialist how he managed to remain calm while overseeing thousands of men and millions in capital. He smiled and said, I do not manage them, Mr. Hill. I manage my hours. That statement struck me with profound force, for within it lies a universal truth. Mastery is not achieved through intensity, but through consistency. A man may work feverishly for a week and then rest for a month. he will achieve little. But another, who works moderately yet steadily each day, will surpass him 100-fold. It is not the flame that burns hottest that endures, it is the one that burns longest. And here lies another secret. A system does not remove freedom, it creates it. Most men believe freedom means doing as they please. But true freedom is the ability to act in harmony with one's higher purpose, not to be driven by whims or distractions. A man enslaved to his moods is not free, no matter how much leisure he possesses. When you rise and act by design, you are free. When you drift and react by impulse, you are in bondage. Therefore, the man who builds a system of discipline builds the architecture of liberty itself. I recommend beginning small. Choose a single ritual, one action that anchors your day. Perhaps it is your morning reflection, your evening review, your hour of study or labor. Guard it as sacred. Perform it regardless of how you feel. Over time, add another, then another. Soon, your day will form a pattern, not one imposed upon you, but one forged by your own will. And something miraculous will occur. Life will begin to obey your structure. The mind, the body, even opportunity itself will begin to align with your rhythm. You will find that doors open not by chance, but because your order commands them to. For the universe responds to rhythm, and rhythm is the essence of discipline. Remember, emotion will betray you. Structure will sustain you. When you feel tired, your system will carry you. When you feel uncertain, your system will guide you. When you feel unmotivated, your system will still move. That is why men of true power appear unshakable. They have built a framework around their purpose, and within that framework, they cannot fall. I will say it once more, and I hope you engrave it upon your mind. When you control your hours, you control your destiny, and the man who commands his time commands his future, not by luck nor by emotion, but by law. I have often said that greatness does not begin in grand gestures or in the sight of the crowd. It begins in small, quiet acts, performed faithfully when no one is watching. Discipline is not a thunderclap. It is a whisper repeated each morning. It is the simple decision to do what must be done, even when it seems trivial, even when it feels too small to matter. A man builds his strength not by the weight of his labors, but by the consistency of them. When I speak to men about self-mastery, they often ask, where do I begin? And my answer is always the same. Begin with the smallest act you can control. Make your bed. Rise with purpose. Complete the smallest promise you make, for each act you complete, no matter how minor, becomes a brick in the foundation of your self-trust. And that foundation, once solid, can carry the weight of any ambition. Do not underestimate the power of these simple victories. A man who cannot keep the smallest promise to himself will never keep the great ones. But a man who honors his word in small things builds within himself a force that no adversity can shake. I learned this truth not from books, but from life. When I was young, I often found myself full of vision, but poor in consistency. I would promise myself to begin a task only to find some excuse to postpone it. At first, it seemed harmless, a delay here, a broken word there. But soon I realized something profound. Every time I failed to keep a promise to myself, I weakened the most vital muscle a man possesses, faith in his own word. You see, when a man breaks his word to another, he may lose the trust of that person. But when he breaks his word to himself, he loses something far greater. He loses self-respect. And without self-respect, no wealth, no education, no reputation can fill the emptiness that follows. So I began to rebuild that inner faith, not through ambition, but through small acts of honor. I would set my hour of rising and rise. I would promise myself to write one page and write it. I would vow to complete a letter and complete it before the day's end. Each small promise kept became a silent victory. No one saw it. No one applauded. But within me, I felt something growing, a quiet power, a sense that I could rely on myself. This, my friend, is the secret to confidence. It is not built in public, but in solitude. It does not come from the approval of others, but from the steady realization that I do what I say I will do. A man who can trust himself needs no encouragement, no applause, no validation. His conviction becomes his own reward. As I often remind my students, the man who keeps his word to himself needs no applause. Think of your word as sacred currency. Every time you make a promise and keep it, you grow richer in spirit. Every time you make one and break it, you grow poor, not in reputation, but in character. Self-trust is the seed from which all true success grows. Without it, every plan collapses under the weight of doubt. But with it, a man can endure storms that would crush the ordinary. Confidence, courage, determination, these are not gifts of chance. They are born from repetition, from the continual honoring of one's own word. If you wish to build a life of strength, begin not with grand declarations, but with small completions. Do the thing you said you would do, however small, however unseen. Sweep the floor, finish the page, close the book. Do it not for the world, but for yourself. And as you do, you will notice something remarkable. Each act of completion plants a seed of certainty in your mind. Soon you will no longer ask, can I? You will know you can because you have proven it to yourself 100 times before. That is how discipline transforms from effort into identity. It is easy to make promises to others, for their eyes hold us accountable. It is far harder to make and keep promises in solitude, but that is where the truest strength is forged. The man who is faithful to himself when no one is watching will be unshakable when the world begins to test him. I recall once meeting a man of great success, admired by many, envied by more. I asked him the source of his calmness, his ability to remain certain even when surrounded by chaos. He replied simply, I never make promises I do not intend to keep, especially to myself. That, my friend, is the essence of mastery. Not perfection, not grand gestures, but daily proof. You build your character as a mason builds a wall, brick by brick, day by day. Each small act placed with care and consistency. Do not despise the small things. The world may not see them, but your soul does. Each time you rise at your chosen hour, your mind takes note. Each time you keep your word, your will grows stronger. Each time you finish a task, however small, your faith in yourself deepens. And soon the day comes when you no longer depend on inspiration, on luck, or on the opinion of others, because you have built within yourself something far more powerful. Trust. Self-trust is the foundation of all discipline. It is the proof that you are the master of your word, the ruler of your conduct, and the author of your destiny. And remember, a man who keeps his word to himself stands taller than any applause could ever make him. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must decide which master he will serve, emotion or discipline. Emotion is a storm. It arrives with sound and fury, sweeping through the mind, clouding judgment, and shaking the will. Discipline, on the other hand, is the compass, steady, unshaken, pointing true north, even when the skies darken and the winds rise. Most men live at the mercy of their emotions. They work when inspired, rest when tired, and abandon their path the moment discouragement arrives. They are like ships without rudders, carried wherever the current of feeling takes them. But the man of discipline, he sails the same waters, yet remains unmoved by the storm. He does not allow emotion to command his course. He uses it as wind, not as direction. I have learned through long experience that emotion, though powerful, cannot be trusted to lead. It is changeable by nature. Here one moment, gone the next. One day it whispers courage. The next it murmurs defeat. A man who builds his life upon emotion builds his house upon sand. Discipline, however, is the foundation stone. It does not depend upon mood. It does not ask permission of the heart. It acts simply because it has been commanded to act. You may say, but Mr. Hill, is it not passion that drives men to greatness? Yes, passion may begin the journey, but only discipline finishes it. The greatest builders, thinkers, and inventors I have ever known did not work when they felt like it. They worked because their purpose demanded it. Emotion may light the first spark, but discipline keeps the flame alive through the long, dark nights when no one is watching. I once visited a blacksmith in a small town, a man of few words and steady hands. Day after day, he struck the same rhythm upon the anvil. I asked him, do you ever tire of this endless repetition? He smiled faintly and said, Sir, I do not strike because I am inspired. I strike because the iron will not bend itself. That man, without knowing it, had spoken one of the greatest truths of human progress. The blacksmith's hammer is the perfect image of discipline. Each strike seems small, unimportant, repetitive. Yet together they transform cold metal into strength and form. Emotion would have him stop when weary. Discipline tells him, one more strike. And in that final strike, the iron yields, not to passion, but to persistence. So it is with life. You will find moments when the fire burns bright and effort feels effortless. Treasure them, but do not depend upon them, for they will fade as all feelings do. And when they fade, what remains? Only your choice. Discipline is the bridge between moments of emotion. It is what carries you through the barren days when nothing stirs your spirit. It is the quiet voice that says, do what must be done, not because you feel like it, but because it is right. A man ruled by emotion cannot be trusted, not by others, and not by himself. One day he is full of resolve. The next he is full of excuses. He begins many things, but finishes few. His energy burns bright, but burns out. But the man of discipline, though quieter, though slower to speak, finishes what he begins. He rises when tired. He works when uninspired. He continues, even when doubt gnaws at the edges of his mind. For he understands that feelings are visitors, not masters. They come and go, but purpose remains. When I was a young man, I believed that success depended upon inspiration, that one must feel powerful before acting powerfully. But time and experience taught me the reverse. The moment I began to act without waiting for feeling, I found that feeling soon followed action. You do not wait for courage to begin. You begin, and courage awakens. You do not wait for faith to act. You act, and faith grows from the result. This is the law of motion. Emotion follows motion. Therefore, the man who waits to feel ready will wait forever. The man who acts before readiness will be ready sooner than all the rest. Do not misunderstand me. I do not speak against emotion. Emotion is a gift, a force that gives color to life and warmth to purpose. But it is a poor master. It was meant to serve the disciplined mind, not to rule it. You must learn to direct emotion as the blacksmith directs fire, not by extinguishing it, but by containing it, shaping it, and turning it toward creation. When anger comes, turn it into drive. When fear comes, turn it into focus. When sorrow comes, turn it into understanding. Let emotion fuel you, but let discipline steer you. For what is character if not the ability to act rightly even when one's heart resists? What is strength if not the power to move forward even when every feeling says to stop? The true test of a man's worth is not how he behaves when inspired, but how he behaves when uninspired, when tired, doubtful, discouraged, and alone. And I tell you, the man who moves forward even then, even 1 inch, possesses more greatness than the one who runs forward only when cheered by feeling. So when you wake and your heart whispers, rest a little longer, rise anyway. When you face your labor and your mind says, not today, begin anyway. When you feel nothing within you but emptiness, act still. For in that act lies your freedom. You may not always feel powerful. You may not always feel certain. But if you act as though you are, soon you will be. Remember always, emotion is the storm. Discipline is the compass. And storms, no matter how fierce, always pass. I have met many men in my life, but I have known only a few who truly govern themselves. They were not the loudest, nor the most passionate, nor the most celebrated. They were the steady ones, the men who could be counted upon, not because they were never swayed by emotion, but because they never obeyed it blindly. That is the mark of character, to act not from impulse, but from principle. I leave you then with this truth to engrave upon your mind. He who moves only when moved by emotion shall never move far, but he who moves by discipline, who acts in season and out of season, in joy and in struggle, will reach a place emotion alone could never carry him. And when that man stands at the summit of his labor, he will look back and know it was not passion that brought him there. It was perseverance. It was discipline. It was the will to strike the iron again and again until it finally bent to his command. Every great endeavor, whether of the mind, the spirit, or the hand, moves through seasons. And just as the earth must endure winter before spring, so too must a man endure the cycles of his own labor. Discipline, my friend, is not tested at the beginning, nor is it proven at the end. It is forged in the middle, where most men quietly surrender. In the beginning, discipline feels easy, even exhilarating. The air is full of newness. The vision is clear. Every action feels noble and full of purpose. You rise early, eager to begin. Your heart burns with belief. You are carried not by strength, but by excitement. The illusion that effort alone guarantees reward. But soon, inevitably, the middle arrives. The freshness fades. The results you expected do not yet appear. The applause grows silent. Fatigue creeps in. Doubt follows close behind. It is here, in this quiet middle, that most men are defeated, not by failure, but by impatience. They mistake stillness for stagnation, silence for emptiness. They believe that because the harvest has not yet shown, the seeds were planted in vain. But I tell you this, when nothing seems to work, it is working within you. Discipline, like the roots of a great tree, grows first in the dark, beneath the surface, unseen by the eye. Strength is forming. Each repetition, each act of persistence, each silent victory, all are building something deeper than results. They are building endurance, the rarest quality of all. In those long seasons of obscurity, when no one sees and no one praises, you are being tempered. The mind is learning to stand without approval. The spirit is learning to burn without recognition. This is the sacred ground upon which mastery is born. When I first began my studies of success, I observed a curious pattern among men of achievement. None of them looked particularly extraordinary in the middle of their journey. In fact, most were criticized, doubted, or ignored. Their results were uncertain. Their efforts often went unnoticed, yet they continued. And when the harvest finally came, when the world could at last see what had been forming all along, people called it luck or genius. But it was neither. It was discipline, carried through the seasons. Understand this. No man lives in perpetual summer. Excitement will fade. Inspiration will wane. There will come days of exhaustion, of quiet, of repetition without reward. These are the winter days of labor. Most abandon their field during this time, not realizing that the soil is preparing for growth. It is in the middle, not the beginning, that faith is truly tested. For faith that exists only in comfort is no faith at all. When you find yourself in that long stretch, where progress feels slow and every day feels the same, do not curse it. It is the silent refining of your soul. You are learning to work without noise, to move without witness, to endure without recognition. And those who endure this season will rise to a level others never reach. Remember this, the sun too rises not in thunder but in silence. Each dawn begins quietly. There is no applause, no proclamation, only a faint light on the horizon, growing stronger with each passing moment. And yet that light transforms the world. So it is with your progress. You will not always hear the sound of your own advancement. But one day when you look back, you will see how far you've come, not in leaps, but in inches, carried forward by steady endurance. I recall a time when I labored for months upon a single idea. Every morning I would rise, write, reflect, and refine. But no matter what I did, the results eluded me. I grew restless. I began to wonder if perhaps I had chosen the wrong path. Then one morning, as I reviewed my notes, a pattern emerged, a clarity that had been forming all along, unseen, beneath the surface of my struggle. What I thought had been wasted effort was in truth the forming of insight. The mind had been working in silence while I doubted its progress. That moment taught me a lesson I have never forgotten. Progress does not announce itself. It arrives quietly, and only the disciplined are there to greet it. You must learn to love the middle, the season where excitement fades but strength is built, for it is there that the weak turn back and the steadfast advance. Endurance is not mere stubbornness. It is faith in motion. It is the belief that though the world is still, growth continues within. When fatigue whispers, you've done enough, answer, not yet. When doubt says this is pointless, reply, then let me continue until it has meaning. When silence surrounds you, remember, even the sun begins in silence. Your discipline is not wasted. It is gathering power. The roots are growing deep, even if the branches have yet to bloom. And when the day comes, and it will come, when the harvest finally breaks through the soil, you will realize that everything you endured was not punishment but preparation. The man who endures the middle becomes unshakable. He does not rush the process nor demand reward. He trusts that what he builds in darkness will one day stand in the light. So when nothing seems to work, know this: it is working within you. The mind is strengthening, the will is hardening, the soul is being forged. And one day, when others ask how you became so steady, so certain, so strong, you will answer simply, I endured. There is a law, older than any written by man, yet binding upon all who seek greatness, the law of integrity. It states simply that no man may rise higher in the world than the level of respect he holds for himself. And that respect, my friend, is not given by others. It is earned, quietly, privately, each time you keep your word to yourself. Discipline, at its core, is not about denial or punishment. It is about honor. It is the sacred contract between a man and his own conscience. When you say you will do a thing, and you do it, you strengthen that bond. When you break your own word, even in secret, you weaken it. Most men do not fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they cannot trust themselves. They speak of great plans, of visions, of dreams, but within their hearts they know, I have promised myself before, and I have not kept it. That knowledge, quiet and corrosive, eats away at faith and courage. You may deceive the world for a season, but you cannot deceive your own soul. When you betray your word to yourself, you feel it. It shows in hesitation, in self-doubt, in the quiet belief that you are unworthy of success. A man who cannot trust himself will never command the trust of others. Integrity, therefore, is not a matter of reputation. It is a matter of discipline. When I was young, I believed that success was built upon the trust others placed in me. But as I grew and observed, I learned that the opposite was true. The world mirrors the trust we place in ourselves. Keep your word in the dark, and the world will reflect that light. Break it in secret, and all the applause of men will not fill the emptiness left behind. I once met a businessman of great wealth but little peace. His ventures flourished. His name was known. But when I spoke with him privately, I sensed unrest. I asked him, tell me, sir, do you still keep the promises you make to yourself? He paused, looked away, and said, not as I once did. There, in that single confession, lay the reason for his unrest. His success was built on structure, but not on integrity. And without integrity, even abundance becomes emptiness. I tell you this not as a moral lecture, but as a law of mind. A man's subconscious takes note of every promise made and every promise broken. Each act of discipline builds power. Each act of neglect drains it. When you keep your word, when you rise at the hour you said you would, when you complete the work you vowed to complete, your mind receives a silent command. This man may be trusted, and from that trust, all confidence flows. Self-respect is not given by fortune, nor by status, nor by applause. It is forged through consistency between word and deed, and once you possess it, you will never again need to chase validation. A man who respects himself walks with a quiet authority that no title can grant. Do not think of discipline as chains that bind. Think of it as music, the order that allows harmony to exist. Without discipline, life becomes noise, scattered, discordant, chaotic. But with it, each action aligns with purpose. Each choice flows toward meaning. When a man loses discipline, he loses harmony with himself. His mind pulls one way, his will another, his desires yet another. He becomes divided. And a divided man cannot stand for long. But the disciplined man lives in unity. His thoughts, his actions, and his intentions are aligned. That is true peace, not ease, but inner coherence. The world will test you. It will tempt you to cut corners, to make promises you do not intend to keep, to justify small betrayals of your own standard. Resist that path. For every compromise made against your integrity is a brick removed from the foundation of your strength. You may fool others with clever words, but the mind knows the truth, and the mind never forgets. Remember, discipline is the guardian of self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of all achievement. A man who honors his word in private gains power in public. A man who is true when no one is watching becomes unshakable when the world observes. The undisciplined man must conquer others to feel powerful. The disciplined man conquers himself and needs no other victory. I have studied kings, builders, and thinkers, and I have seen this truth repeated without exception. The man who conquers himself will never again need to conquer another. He no longer seeks control because he already possesses it. He no longer demands respect because he embodies it. When you live by the law of integrity, every act becomes a reflection of that inner command. You will no longer act from fear or doubt, but from certainty. The certainty that your word and your will are one, and that unity, once forged, makes you unstoppable. So hold fast to your word. Keep the promises you whisper in the dark. Protect them as you would a sacred flame, for they are the proof that you are becoming what few men ever become, whole, unbroken, and free. There is a truth that I have witnessed across every age, every enterprise, every triumph of the human spirit. Every empire began with a disciplined man and a daily task. The world often remembers the great monuments, the inventions, the discoveries, yet it forgets that behind every masterpiece stood one man who refused to yield to ease, who rose each morning not for applause but for duty. Discipline is the unseen architect of civilization. It is the quiet, relentless force that turns thought into structure, dream into stone, vision into legacy. When I walked through the great factories of Andrew Carnegie, I did not see mere machines or steel. I saw rhythm. I saw order. I saw the daily manifestation of one man's discipline, multiplied across thousands. Each worker, each motion, each sound of the hammer echoed the principle that structure is born from steadiness. Likewise, when I studied Thomas Edison, I found no trace of magic, only method. His genius was not the lightning flash of inspiration that the world imagines, but the steady glow of persistence. Thousands of failed experiments could not discourage him, because he understood what few ever grasp, that failure, when met with discipline, is not an end, but a refinement. He rose each morning to his laboratory as faithfully as a priest to his altar. There, amid dust and darkness, he built light for the world, not through brilliance alone, but through consistency. I have come to believe that civilization itself is the child of discipline. Every bridge that spans a river, every library filled with knowledge, every law that maintains peace, all are born from men who conquered themselves before they sought to conquer the world. You may see grandeur in their accomplishments, but I see simplicity. A man at his desk, his forge, his workshop, performing his task again and again until the invisible became visible. The dreamers imagine, the disciplined build. It is not the man of fleeting inspiration who leaves a mark upon the earth, but the one who endures through monotony, who labors through doubt, who keeps faith in his task long after the fire of enthusiasm has faded. Consider the builders of cathedrals. Many of them began work knowing they would never live to see the completion of what they started. Yet they worked with the same precision and reverence as if the final stone depended upon their hand. And in truth, it did. That is discipline, to build what you may never see completed, trusting that your labor becomes part of something eternal. In this, discipline becomes not merely a tool, but a divine act, the bridge between man and creation. You see, inspiration belongs to the moment. Discipline belongs to time. And time, not talent, is what builds worlds. When a man gives himself wholly to his work, when he shows up each day, when he refines his craft without excuse, he joins the lineage of the builders. He may never command armies or wear a crown, but his influence will outlast kings. The greatest civilizations were not born in bursts of genius. They were built brick by men who honored their labor. I recall speaking with a mason once as he laid stone upon stone for a modest building. He said, "Most people see only the wall. I see the line, the angle, the pattern that holds it all." That man, in his humility, possessed the same spirit that built empires. For the act of creation, whether of a building, a business, or a life, is the same in essence to hold steady to one's purpose long enough for reality to yield. Discipline is not glamorous. It does not shout. It whispers again. And through that whisper, the world is changed. Many speak of motivation. of inspiration, of vision. But vision without discipline is only a mirage. The dream fades with the morning light, unless the dreamer has the strength to wake and work. Discipline is the bridge from thought to matter, from idea to impact. It is the invisible thread that binds every great endeavor across time. Think of it. The pyramids, the printing press, the steam engine, the skyscraper, none of these were born from emotion alone. Each was born from repetition, from patience, from order, from endurance. This is why I have said before, and I will say again, the world belongs not to the inspired, but to the disciplined. The inspired begin, the disciplined continue. The inspired imagine, the disciplined manifest. You may not possess great genius, nor vast fortune, nor even the favor of men, but if you possess discipline, you possess the seed of mastery. For the disciplined man builds beyond himself. His work becomes his monument. His consistency becomes his legacy. Long after his hands are still, what he has created endures. Every generation inherits the labor of disciplined men, men who work not for praise, but for purpose. Men who mastered the smallest task with the same care they would give the greatest. You and I stand today upon the shoulders of such men. Their names may be forgotten, but their work remains in the roads we walk, the tools we use, the knowledge we share. And so I say to you, when you feel weary in your labor, when you doubt the value of your steady effort, remember this, you are a builder. Every act of discipline you perform contributes to the unseen architecture of progress. You are not merely working. You are creating order out of chaos. You are doing the same sacred work that built the very world you inhabit. And someday, when your task is complete, others will build upon the foundation you have laid. For that is the destiny of the disciplined, not merely to achieve, but to contribute to the eternal work of creation. There comes a point in every man's journey when he begins to understand that discipline is not merely a habit of the flesh, it is a law of the spirit. In my early years, I believed discipline to be a matter of will alone, a stern command of mind over body. But as I studied the greatest men of our time, and as I observed the quiet strength that guided them through hardship and triumph alike, I came to a deeper understanding. Discipline is faith made visible. Every day that a man rises early to fulfill his duty, every hour he devotes to his craft, every act of perseverance performed without witness, all of it is a silent prayer, a declaration of belief in his own divine potential. The world speaks often of prayer as words directed upward, but I have seen another form, a prayer of motion. When a man labors in faith, when he works, though the results are unseen, he participates in the highest act of worship, the alignment of will with purpose. Discipline, therefore, is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. It is the physical expression of belief, to move without proof, to persist without evidence, to continue without reward. That is faith in action. I have long taught what I call the law of transmutation, the principle that persistent energy transforms the invisible into the visible. Everything you desire, every fortune, every invention, every destiny already exists in potential. It awaits only the steady vibration of your disciplined effort to bring it into form. Just as heat transforms water into steam, and steam moves great engines, so too does the fire of steady effort transform unseen possibility into tangible creation. This is not mysticism, but law, the divine economy of effort and result. You see, the divine does not reward wishful thinking. It responds to movement, to consistency, to faith demonstrated through action. Every swing of the hammer, every line written, every honest hour of labor sends forth a signal, a declaration that says, I believe in what I have not yet seen. That signal draws to you people, opportunities, and circumstances aligned with your purpose. What others call luck is merely the universe answering the disciplined man's prayer. When you understand this, your work will never again feel empty. Each repetition becomes sacred. Each day of effort becomes a quiet communion between your will and the infinite intelligence that governs all creation. When I sat with Andrew Carnegie, he said to me something I never forgot. Faith, Hill, is not believing that something will happen someday. Faith is doing your part today, as if it were already so. That is discipline, acting as though your success were inevitable, long before the world agrees. Each morning you rise with purpose, you affirm to life itself, I am ready. Each time you resist the temptation of ease, you declare, I am worthy. Each time you persist beyond fatigue, you whisper to the divine, I have faith still. This is why discipline is not harshness, it is reverence. It is the daily offering of your energy to something greater than comfort, greater than fear, greater than circumstance. It is no coincidence that the men who live by discipline often appear to be guided by unseen hands. They move through obstacles as if aided by providence. Doors open, paths appear, forces align. But these are not miracles of chance. They are the natural result of harmony between the inner and outer worlds. The divine helps the man who helps himself through discipline. When you act with steadfastness, you prove that you are ready to receive. When you maintain order in your own conduct, you create a channel through which inspiration and opportunity can flow. It has been said that heaven favors the prepared mind. I say to you, heaven favors the disciplined heart. There is nothing accidental about sustained success. Behind every life of meaning lies a rhythm, a sacred cadence of work, rest, reflection, and persistence. Discipline is that rhythm. It is your soul moving in time with the pulse of creation. When you honor your word, when you fulfill your duties, when you labor with consistency, even in silence, you are in harmony with that pulse. You become part of the great machinery through which the unseen becomes seen. The faithless man prays for miracles. The disciplined man creates them. And as you walk this path, you will notice a quiet transformation. The struggle will remain, but your relationship to it will change. You will begin to feel guided, strengthened, sustained. Your work will feel less like effort and more like expression. That, my friend, is the union of faith and discipline, when your actions no longer strain against your spirit, but flow from it. You will find that the line between labor and prayer begins to disappear. The hammer stroke, the pen, the thought, the breath, all become one offering, one movement toward purpose. When fatigue visits, you will remember that even the divine rested, but never abandoned order. When doubt whispers, you will recall that faith is not the absence of uncertainty, but the mastery of it. And when you feel alone in your struggle, remember this truth. No man who disciplines himself is ever alone. The same intelligence that hung the stars in the heavens observes and strengthens the one who acts with conviction. For discipline is not merely the path to success. It is communion with the eternal. Each morning you begin again. You are not just repeating work, you are renewing a sacred vow. Each act of effort says to life itself, I am still here, I still believe. So let your discipline become your prayer. Let your persistence become your faith. Let your daily work become your offering. And one day, when you look back upon your life, you will see that every disciplined moment was not merely building fortune, it was shaping your soul. For in the end, it is not the wealth or recognition that endures. It is the spirit you forged through daily obedience to your purpose. And that spirit, that quiet, unshakable faith in motion, is the closest a man can come to the divine while still upon this earth. There is a moment, subtle yet unmistakable, when a man who has lived by discipline begins to notice that life itself starts to move in harmony with him. What once resisted now yields. What once seemed distant begins to draw near. It is as if the very currents of the universe have bent to his rhythm. This is no accident. It is the natural law of order. You do not chase order. Order follows discipline. Most men spend their lives in pursuit, chasing wealth, chasing peace, chasing purpose. They grasp outwardly for what can only be summoned inwardly. They beg the world to calm itself before they calm their own minds. But the disciplined man knows the secret. He does not wait for calm. He creates it. He does not chase order. He commands it through structure, through repetition, through unwavering intent. You see, when a man disciplines his actions, he sends a signal to life itself. I am ready. I am stable. I am dependable. And the universe, like a river seeking a steady bank, flows toward that stability. You do not chase peace. Peace follows consistency. Every morning you rise at the same hour. Every day you complete your chosen task. Every evening you review your deeds. These simple acts weave a rhythm that calms the spirit and clears the mind. Peace is not the absence of chaos. It is the presence of order within chaos. It is the quiet strength of knowing that while the world trembles, your foundation stands firm. The undisciplined man prays for peace, yet his habits betray turmoil. His mind wanders, his word wavers, his days dissolve into noise. But the disciplined man carries peace with him, because his life is an ordered reflection of his purpose. And you do not chase success. Success follows commitment. The world does not yield its treasures to those who dabble or drift. It opens only to those who persist, who show up when others quit, who act when others hesitate, who keep faith when others doubt. Every empire, every masterpiece, every triumph was born not of genius alone, but of commitment maintained when emotion faded. Success, you see, is not pursued. It is invited by the steady vibration of discipline. When a man disciplines his actions, the universe aligns with his will. He becomes magnetic. Ideas arrive, allies appear, circumstances bend. The right opportunities, which once hid in the shadows, begin to reveal themselves, not because fate has changed, but because he has changed. Discipline alters the frequency of the mind. It sharpens intention, amplifies faith, and attracts the resources that were waiting all along. When your inner world is ordered, your outer world must follow suit. This is not wishful thinking. It is law. You cannot create harmony in your affairs while living in disarray within. But once you master yourself, once your thoughts, words, and actions march in unison, life itself becomes symphonic. Let me tell you what I have learned in my years of study. Success is not a chase, it is a consequence. Peace is not a reward, it is a reflection. Order is not a gift, it is a mirror. The disciplined man does not beg for alignment, he embodies it. Each morning, he moves with purpose. Each task he completes with care. Each challenge he meets with composure. And through these daily obediences, he speaks the ancient language of creation, rhythm, intention, faith, and the universe listens. For creation itself is disciplined. The tides move in rhythm. The planets turn in perfect measure. The seasons keep their appointed times. All of nature obeys order, and so must man if he would live in harmony with it. When you rise at dawn, when you do what you said you would do, when you honor the structure of your own day, you enter into partnership with that same universal rhythm. You cease to struggle against it and begin to move with it. And suddenly what once felt like resistance transforms into flow. Doors that were locked begin to open. Problems that seemed immovable begin to shift. You discover that the path you sought was not somewhere ahead. It was always under your feet, waiting for your steady step. Discipline, therefore, is not a cage. It is a current. It carries you. It holds you. It delivers you to the destination your chaos could never reach. Now listen to me, and let these words settle deep within you. When I discipline my mind, I calm the storms around me. When I discipline my actions, I command the flow of time. When I discipline my spirit, I walk in peace amid turmoil. Order follows me because I have ordered myself. Peace follows me because I have made peace with effort. Success follows me because I have committed to the path. This is the law of all creation. Alignment follows discipline. So from this moment forward, let your effort become prayer. Let your steadiness become strength. Let your discipline become destiny. For you are no longer a wanderer among distractions. You are an architect of rhythm, a builder of order, a commander of purpose. And when the world looks upon you, it will see not a man struggling against chaos, but a man through whom creation itself finds its order. Discipline has made you magnetic. Faith has made you unshakable. And the universe, obedient to both, now moves in step with your will. My friend, if you have walked with me this far, then you have already proven something extraordinary. You have proven that within you lies the seed of the disciplined man. And now I will tell you the final truth, the one truth that binds every law, every lesson, every victory I have spoken of. Force yourself to stay disciplined, and the world will yield. I have seen it with my own eyes. Men of ordinary birth, humble means, uncertain beginnings, who rose to greatness not by favor, not by chance, not by fortune, but by one steady choice repeated each day, the choice to continue when comfort called them to stop. That is the essence of power, not brilliance, not inspiration, not the cheers of others, but persistence under silence. I have lived long enough to know that life will test you. It will test you in the cold dawn when you rise and feel no spark. It will test you when failure mocks you, when your strength fades, when your dreams feel heavy upon your back. In those moments, many men retreat. They wait for easier hours, softer winds, candor days. But the disciplined man, he does not wait. He does not bow to the storm. He becomes it. When the going gets hard, do not break. Build. When the world grows silent, listen deeper. When doubt whispers, let your work answer. You must understand, discipline is not merely doing what is right. It is becoming what is right. Every act of will, every promise kept, every task finished, every temptation overcome, builds something invisible and eternal within you. Each moment of obedience to your purpose forges the unseen armor of character. And when that armor is complete, nothing external can command you again. He who commands himself commands the world. You will not need to shout. You will not need to demand. Your presence will speak for you. Your steadiness will make men trust you. Your word will carry weight. Your work will echo beyond your years. The undisciplined man may taste pleasure, but he will never know peace. The disciplined man may face struggle, but he will never live in chains. For discipline is not your burden. It is your crown. It is the proof that you have conquered the greatest kingdom of all, the kingdom within. I say to you now, with every conviction my life has earned, do not wish for an easier path. Wish to be a stronger traveler. Do not hope the world will change for you. Change yourself, and the world will follow. If you can hold your course when others falter, if you can keep your word when no one is watching, if you can labor in silence and trust that each day of effort shapes the unseen, then there is no force in heaven or on earth that can deny you the fruits of your faith. You will see your path clear, your spirit calm, your destiny unfold in perfect rhythm, and you will know, not from books or speeches, but from your own triumph, that the man who disciplines his mind has mastered his fate. So let this be your creed. I will act when I do not feel like acting. I will work when no one applauds. I will persist when I wish to rest. I will trust when results are unseen. For each day that I conquer myself, I build a world that obeys my command. Remember these words, not as inspiration, but as instruction. Force yourself to stay disciplined, and the world will yield. For discipline is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the fire that refines the gold. It is the silence before the dawn. It is the mark of the master. One day, others will ask how you achieved what they could not. You will not boast. You will not speak of luck, or talent, or timing. You will say only this: I kept going. And in that simple truth, all the laws of success are contained. Now rise, builder of your own destiny. Walk the path you have chosen with calm certainty. Let the noise of the world fade behind you, and know that every step you take in discipline is a step taken in faith. Faith that the man who commands himself has already commanded his future. For the world bends not to brilliance, not to strength, but to discipline. And when that discipline becomes your nature, when it beats in your chest and breathes through your work, then you will wear your crown, not of gold, but of mastery. And in that moment you will understand you were never meant to be ruled by circumstance. You were meant to rule yourself, and through that rule to rule the world.